Lindsay here, the frugal crafter, frugal painter, getting a lot of requests for painting tutorials on my channel. I love it because it's easy, and all I gotta do is have a bucket of water and some paint. It's awesome. Thank you for requesting that. Anyway, I wanted to come in. I don't even know what I'm gonna paint today. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. But I wanted to first share my reference file folders. I know we have the internet today, and you could say, gee, I want to paint a lilac, and you could search for a lilac picture on the internet, but you know what? I don't like to be messing with technology when I'm painting, unless I'm just turning on the camera to do a YouTube video. So what I do is when I'm reading a magazine like my Martha Stewart, I do like Martha, or seed catalogs, or if I'm taking photographs, when I have pictures that that I like, that kind of spark some inspiration, maybe it's the clouds in the sky, or maybe it's the color of the petals on the flower, I will tear that out of the magazine or print it out if it's a photo that I've taken, and then I put them in a big accordion file folder. This is just a old office recycled folder, and I have it divided by color. So I mostly paint flowers, so this is my flower reference file. And then so say I found this lovely picture of some cabbage roses. Well, those are mostly pinks, so then I would go in my folder and I would open up the red and pink section, and I would slip that in. So then when I feel like painting, feel like making paintings, that was bad, I'll grab my folder and I'll flip through and I'll find, I'll feel what color am I feeling today. I'm feeling orange, obviously feeling orange today, so I'll look in like the yellow-orange section and find something to paint. So that's what I do. I also save seed catalogs because sometimes there's some really great photography, and I tend not to go from like one reference photo. What I'll do is I'm like, well, I like those flowers, but I like this bird, but I like that branch, and I kind of mix it all together and come up with something unique, and I think that's a great way to use reference photos. But if you're a beginner, that may be kind of daunting to kind of figure out where the light's coming from and everything. You can just go ahead and paint from a picture. It's okay. I give you permission to do that. I know people are going to say, whoa, you can't sell that if you're painting it from a picture, copyright, ah! But you're probably not going to sell it. You're learning. You're a beginner. You have permission to just go and paint what you want to paint. Use a photo if you have to. It's fine. You'll get to the point where you can take all the observations you've made and put them together in a unique painting. You'll get there. Don't worry. Just enjoy painting, okay? So we should enjoy some painting. Let me look through my reference files and find something to paint. Let's go to the table. All right, well, I got some watercolor pencils because somebody asked me if I could do a tutorial just using watercolor pencils. I prefer the Derwent Inktense brand, but you, of course, use what you have. These are a fairly new colored pencil. They've been out for a couple of years. They're just more vivid than the other ones, but I have the regular Derwent pencils. They're nice too. I've used lesser expensive ones. I've used even Crayola. Really use what you have. And I feel like, I think, doing a carnation today. So let me show you about what I mean with reference photos. Now, I know what a carnation looks like. Here's a picture of a carnation from my catalog. I'm going to use this to loosely base my sketch on, but I know I'm not going to do those variation because I don't feel like doing wax resist. So I'm just going to use that to get my basic sketch. And I'm going to sketch it in with some of the colors I plan to use. So one, I plan on doing maybe a carnation here, and maybe a bud. I'm going to draw this upside down so you could see it right set up. And what I'm going to do is just very lightly kind of dot on kind of how I want my carnations. Actually, I'm going to put the two big ones on the bottom, maybe just like a little bud. And I don't even know if you could see that, but I basically just made little dots. This will turn into paint when I add water to it, so I just need to get have a guide for getting my leafy random crazy petals in there. And a lot of this just comes with, now that looks like a carnation to me. It looks like I got the basic bones of the flower right. I want to do kind of an orangey one over here. Really, less is more. I know if I try to use an economy of lines here, because sometimes I like to change my mind as I'm painting, and if I have too much structure, I can't do that. But I want to have enough structure that I know where I'm going. It's like you're just kind of following a map a little bit, but you might take a detour here and there. Okay, so there we've got our more of an orangey carnation, And I just want to put a little bud up here. I don't have any buds to go by in my picture, but luckily I know what a carnation looks like. I remember in school, you would always have carnation days. You could buy carnations for your sweetie, buy carnations for people, receive carnations, and oh my gosh, it must be the cheapest flower known to man or something, because you always had the carnations. That's always what they did at school. That's always what you could buy for your classmates. So I'm going to put a little hip to that flower in there. Oh, I like this color. This one is fern, actually. And I put a little, they have like very waxy kind of curvy leaves. I'm going to get a few of those just in there, hither and thither. There we go. I'm not going to bother with the background because it's going to take a while to dry, and I've already gabbed enough about a reference file, so we got to get to the painting, I think. So before I add water, I like to make sure I have all the color I want. I want some yellow. I'm just going to throw in some yellow over this. And then I'm going to add a little more concentration of the orange to the outsides. And I want a little bit of the variation on the leaves, but I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Generally, if I want to be able to control the color and I want it to blend, I want to work with dry watercolor pencils on dry paper, and then it'll be very easy to blend. But if I don't want my my pencil to blend out, then I will use dry pencil on wet paper, or even wet pencil on wet paper. All right, so for that one, let's go ahead and I am going to kind of wet it a petal at a time because I don't want it to turn into just a one color blob, and it's kind of what it would want to do. So I'm actually kind of going in and getting the darker edge first, because I've worked on the dry paper, so I know I haven't damaged the surface of the paper anywhere. Rinse my brush. This is the cool thing about these pencils, is that most of your pigment stays on your paper, so your rinse water doesn't get dirty. You can actually get by with just one bucket of rinse water here. Yeah, I have to say thank you for the wonderful support that I've gotten from you guys watching my videos and asking for more, and I really enjoy doing these tutorials. Also want to thank you for the awesome run on the painting tutorials in my shop. I'll put a link to my shop underneath here, but oh, holy moly, I've sold a lot of those since I started these videos, free videos, so I want to thank you for that. Alright, so for now, I want to add some darker variations in my leaves, so what I'm doing is, check this out. I am dipping my brush, dipping my pencil in my water, and just kind of drawing that in. And the only reason I taped this down, I could have had it on a board and used some clips. I just didn't want it to go anywhere while I was doing the video. Sometimes I get lost in thought, lost in my painting, and I forget that I'm actually there's actually a video camera going, which is kind of odd that I just talk to myself all the time anyway. Great conversation though. Okay. A little bit more up here on the edge. We're going to leave that carnation alone, and we're going to go work up here on this bud. And I think I'm going to have this, just kind of have the tips colored, but I want to go in there with the dark first on dry paper, dry pencil, dry paper here for control, dry pencil, dry paper. Try this with whatever watercolor pencils you have. I'm going to go all over it with this lighter pink. If you're using regular watercolor pencils, your colors may not be this bright. This is very, very bright because it's the Inktense brand. If you don't have watercolor pencils yet, I would recommend that you check these out. Unless you don't like the really bright colors, then don't get them because you won't like them. But if you are, if you don't have any, these are my favorite. These are what I would recommend above others. All right, so there I just kind of brushed over it, and you could still see some of the definition. And you can lift if you decide that you don't like this. Oh, my paper towels went on another adventure on me. Here we go, across the room, finding a fairly clean paper towel. I could press that and lighten it right up. See that? That's pretty cool. And actually, that almost looks like I could just leave it, and I think I will. And I'll go in and color some of these sketches in. The nice thing, I know some of you had mentioned that you don't like the look of pencil lines in your artwork. You can actually do your sketches with watercolor crayons. I went through a phase like that where I just didn't want to see my pencil lines. Now I actually like seeing my pencil lines, but when I went through a phase like that, I would just sketch it out with my watercolor pencils. So that way I wouldn't even have to deal with it. I could throw in a little shadow here. And you know, you can see how you could do a really quick and easy sketch and a really quick and easy painting by using these. And you know, it's just about finding the medium that's right for you. Not everybody's gonna like the same thing. We're all different people, we're all different artists, and you don't have to get the most expensive stuff out there. But if I know of something that seems to really work better than other stuff, then I will recommend it. Like, I think these really aren't any more expensive than any artist quality pencils, but I have to say that they do work really well. I like the vivid color. But that's just me. I think it's worth the investment. That's my furnace. It is October after all. Probably about time the furnace starts kicking on. All right. And if I did want to add some more dark into that, I could just go in with my dark pencil, dip it in some water, and go in and accentuate those petals a little bit. I just kind of turn it as I go, so make sure I have kind of a wet edge there. But you know, you can always add more after it dries. That's a cool thing about your pencils. You can add more, especially with these ink tints, you can add more. All right, so over here, what I'm going to do is I just want to show you what happens if I don't do anything else. And you know what, let me just put my dark color in. And then I'm going to just do a basic wash over this, and you're going to see how you really don't need to do much to these pencils. It'd be cool if I could actually, if you could ask me questions as I was working, wouldn't that be great? I guess you could just type them out and I could answer them in the comments, but you know, I'd often be doing this and I'd be teaching a class, and you know, students would come up with such great questions that, you know, I wouldn't even think to ask. Now this is just kind of pretty because you're just, you get such a nice, gradual, natural look. And if you get too much color, you can rinse your brush off and go back in and just pull the color around. When you work with dry pencils on dry paper, you have a lot of control. And I think with watercolor, a lot of people like the look of watercolor, but they just feel like they don't have the control, and it's just kind of like a runaway train. And I know that feeling. I like that feeling. That's what I like about watercolors. I love that it's always a little bit crazy and scary. But look at that. That's just brushed over with water. And then again, I can go in with my pencil. I didn't wet it that time, but there's enough water on the paper that I can define my edges and just kind of scribble in some more definition. Now for a note card, I think this is just great. It's just fun and quick, a great way to warm up for a day of painting, just like most of my little tutorials are. And there you have it, a quick, simple carnation. If you want to go in and add more dark, you can actually scribble this off on something too and make yourself a little palette, but I don't know, I think that's more for what paints are for. I can go in, I can add some more dark and blend it out with my brush, but really, it's just a fun little project you can do with your watercolor crayons. And you know, you can always put a background in there. What time are we at? We're at 13 minutes. I could actually throw a little background in there, I guess. I don't mind it on the white, but maybe a blue background would make that orange pop. So why don't we try that? Alright, so if I'm going to do a background, again, working with my watercolor, I want to make sure my paper is dry where I'm going to put in my color. And I'm going to go light because I don't want it to overwhelm. And I'm just using the edge of my pencil. I don't have, they also make, I don't know, the ink tense blocks, I think they're called, and they're just like a solid stick of color. I don't have those because I think I would just as soon grab a brush and my watercolor paints. But that's up to you. If you think that's something that would be very useful, give it a try. Let me know what you think. And I am just wetting the background and liquefying that paint. Ideally, you want to wait for your flowers to dry, because if you accidentally go over them a little bit, they shouldn't run. I wouldn't say it's infallible. They do say, like, one of the selling points of the Inktense pencils is that you're supposed to be able to paint over them and they won't lift or run once they're dry. That's not completely true. I've done some work where I've used really dark Inktense and it has lifted even after it was dry. After it had been wet and then dried out. So it's not completely infallible, but it certainly does seem to resist the water a little bit better than other watercolors once it has dried. Alright, I think that's going to be about it. It's a very easy tutorial, certainly not anything I would frame, but I would certainly send it out in the mail to a friend for a fine how do you do. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this tutorial, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Tell your friends. Sharing is caring, folks. I want to thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.